gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, coming to you live from our respective home studios. It is Joe Remele. It is John Case. It is the Gas Up, and welcome to show number 2. Joe, how are you? Number 2.
We made it.
Joe, how you doing?
A nice intro, man. I like that.
You like that? Yeah. A little something I've been working on.
I'm good, man. What a week. What a week in time we just lived.
Correct, right? Another week in the books, getting ready to do our second episode. I heard this a lot when I started, and I didn't really realize how impactful it was till years later. Referrals really are oftentimes like the lifeblood of your business, especially when you're starting out.
They're
right?
amazing. Yeah,
absolutely. Like when somebody can vouch for you, when somebody's willing to say, hey, I've worked with this gentleman, this lady, they're absolutely fantastic at what they do. You got to give them a shot. I never really realized the power of that. It's when I was younger, and it took me a little bit of time. So the fact that you're leveraging that now, I think it's very cool. The fact that you're taking advantage of that at the very beginning, and especially trying to grow that, right? Because
that was actually my business plan. My business plan was go in cheap, right?
Mm-hmm.
I still had a job at the time, so I was just moonlighting as a consultant. And my strategy was, okay, if you want this to be your company, your thing, then go in cheap and get some testimonials and see if you can do what you think you can do for these people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what I did. I reached out to a couple people in my network that seemingly needed a nudge in the right direction, whether it was sales, whether it was business development, whether they needed a model that they could create beautiful proposals with. They just needed a template. They didn't need me to do it for them. They just needed the template to create beautiful proposals for clients, right? So I reached out to like 3 people in my network, and I just said, look, I'll do this for an hourly rate, a very attractive hourly rate. It's not going to cost you a ton of money. At the end of the day, I'm going to revamp your contract, revamp your proposal system, and give you a finished product that you can then go use. And sure enough, they paid me a couple $100 and they sunk a $120,000 event with this proposal that I created for them. Like that was an example of one. So it's like, then I get the testimonial that says
that's very powerful, right?
I turned a couple $100 into a couple $100,000 all of a sudden, and it's a credible company in the industry. So it's like at that point, I've skipped a lot of resume building steps in the industry, and I have this. Anyone at any point could call this president of this company and say, "Hey, what do you think of Joe? Can you help me?" And he's going to be like, "Absolutely, you need to hire him right now because he absolutely can help you."
And I think that's to anybody out there who might be thinking at some point, I want to do my own thing. I'm thinking about maybe branching out on my own. I've been doing this particular, whatever it is, for a while now. I learned the ins and outs, and I really know what I'm doing. Developing those relationships and developing that rapport with folks so that down the road, they know the caliber of the person that you are, the quality of the work that you do can really transform things down the road if you do decide to kind of break off on your own, because those are the people, to your point, that are going to vouch for you. They're the people that are going to potentially even send you deals that turn into real money. And as a business plan, right, when you're trying to do it sort of economically, when you don't have an infinite amount of funds to fund your operation, something like that, I think, is a very smart way to approach it. So kudos to you, sir.
Yeah. Speaking of kudos, I heard you close the deal this week. So talk me through that.
I did. Dude.
If I was your client, what would I say about John Case after closing this deal this week?
John Case was very happy. John Case was ecstatic. Oh man, I can't I was just talking to somebody else about this, as a matter of fact, listing a property right as COVID hit, especially in the age demographic that we were selling, because this is a 55 plus community, so it's an age restricted community. And the fact that COVID that's kind of COVID's demo, if you will, like
that's its thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It kind of brought our listing to a halt for a little bit, not the whole thing, but we listed it right as the governor's orders to pause everything hit. And so there was a couple of weeks there that we list the property, we put it on the market, we take our pictures, the house looks amazing, we hold an open house, and then after that, for the next basically almost 4 weeks, nothing. Everybody's at home, people are scared. A lot of people are thinking the market's going to crash. This is a repeat of 2008, blah, 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 blah. And so it took a little bit of time for people to kind of understand what was happening, to be honest, to kind of get a grip on the reality of the situation. And so once that got going, then we pivoted. I think being flexible in your approach is so important in any business.
So walk me through that. What was a pivot in this case?
So have you ever heard of Matterport, the 3D imaging of the? So for the first time, we had very good good track record of selling homes through like open houses, through selling it through online portals, like utilizing Zillow, Trulia, things like that, for people to be able to see the home. We
Sure.
take high quality pictures so that you can get a good sense of the space of the home. And then traditionally, if you are interested, you come by the property and take a look for yourself, right? Well, in this case, you can't do that. I can't get you physically into the home.
Uh,
So it was a big challenge. The pictures, although they do a good job of conveying how the home looks, they don't really do a good job of conveying a sense of space, a size, distance, things of that nature. So there's a company out there called Matterport that will actually take a 3D image of the interior of the structure. Basically, think of it like a dollhouse view, if you will.
mm,
Like if you were to take the top off of a dollhouse and you can see kind of the rooms and the layout and basically the entire structure in a three-dimensional space. So I've never done that before, but as a company, we're like, you know what, we need to do something different, and let's get out there and run full steam ahead. And so that's what we did. Contacted the company, had a photographer come out, take a look at everything. We took new pictures, and so started updating our marketing and just continue to be persistent and trying to let folks know, guys, this is a beautiful home. It's in a great area. It's really going to make a fantastic home for somebody down the line. And luckily enough, we as a matter of fact, our clients weren't even in San Diego. They saw all the marketing that we did up in San Francisco. They were
right.
relocating. It's an older couple. They're basically retiring. This is going to be their forever home.
Mm,
And they hired an agent here in San Diego, and boom, next thing you know, we have ourselves an offer 21 days later. Actually, it turned out fantastic. Super qualified buyers, super clean contract. The house showed amazing. They were very happy with what they got. And so just on Thursday, signed the deals, got everything done, got the delivered keys. Everything is honky dory. So I was a very happy camper this week. I can tell you, because it's a big stress, man. When you promise somebody that you can execute for them, and then now the pressure is on, that's really when kind of the reality of the business hits you. And we were able to come through. So I was very, very excited and happy about that.
there you go. Good story.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I had a question for you. As you were going up to Bakersfield and getting everything ready, you also participated in a podcast on top of this one, in another podcast. So tell me about that. How was that for you? You were on the Business Bro podcast. I think, was that your first podcast? Was that your first venture outside of this?
Yeah. So the Bros podcast was something that you've been on. So
I have.
you kind of put me on to, hey, you got to check these guys out. They're
Right.
San Diego guys. I've been on the show. You actually appeared in person, so that was kind of cool. I didn't get the luxury of appearing in person.
Right.
But part of the reason why I signed up to be on the podcast was to kind of glean as much good information as I could, because they're way further down their journey, and they have a machine of a podcast. I mean, they're doing one a day, every day of the work week. So these
Right.
guys are just cranking them out, and it's a little nerve wracking because they're on Facebook Live. So like you're literally going out live to the world right now. So anything that you screw up is you kind of feel the pressure a little bit, whereas we record. So it's like, if we really
The magic of
wanted to butcher us
the
a
magic of the
whole
edit.
segment, then we could just do so and cut it, right? But yeah, so it was really cool though, man, to be on a very polished podcast with graphics and switching and Q-ins, video Q-ins. They asked some great questions. I was able to kind of tell a little bit about myself and my business, and we played a game called Two Truths and a Lie, which was great. We should bring some gamesmanship to our show.
Right.
But no, it was an awesome experience, and it kind of, it's interesting that I went on Friday live, and they're still, I think they're going to push the like actual podcast version of the show next week or later. I think there's a little bit of backlog because they do so many of these.
Yeah.
But it kind of, as I'm on the show and as I'm going through the posts and all that, I'm thinking about our show. I believe that was the same day that we were trying to get our show live. So it was kind
Mhm.
of like, I'm imagining how quickly they're producing and kind of all the difficult moments that we had to push through during that week to get our show out and into the world, which, amazingly we pulled off over the weekend, Friday, Saturday. And it was just like, there's so much information coming in so fast that it was kind of fun to, in my mind, I still haven't unpacked it all yet. That's how much information I gathered from not only being on the show, but just doing the show with you,
Mhm.
and kind of splitting the duties between, okay, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a business, right? I'm committed to lots of different things. on top of the fact that, we've committed to the
Right.
show,
All of a sudden
and
you're like, hey, let's throw a show on the mix, right? Let's
let's
go
why
ahead and do
not?
this on a
Let's
weekly
add that
basis.
to the fire, and then try to carve out. And of course, we're stumbling through it,
Yeah.
as
I mean,
we've already told our viewers, like, we're gonna suck at this. You're gonna ride the wave with us. At some point, we're gonna get to the other side of it, and we're all gonna be looking back proud that we stuck with it. But
right.
it was a really cool week. How did you feel during the week? Because you had a lot to balance too, and I know you were working on some of the YouTube forward facing stuff. So tell me about that.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. It's obviously I've been an avid YouTube user, but I've never actually been a creator. So
Hmm.
learning the platform from that
Big
perspective,
difference, huh?
totally different, right?
Yeah.
Like figuring out like, well, how do I title things? What should I say? How do I describe things? At this point, you have a mic. Like, I'm very proud of the fact that last week the setup was a little bit. I got a plant now. You can see
He's
that
got a
there.
plant,
I got
folks.
a
We're
plant.
coming up. A mic and
So
a
for those
plant.
of you who are actually not listening to this but actually watching, there's my plant right through there.
Let's
But
watch it grow together.
yeah, got the mic set up now. I got some lighting. I got a different chair. So really the evolution of how looking back at the first show and really not used to seeing yourself on camera, and now all of a sudden you're critiquing yourself, right? Like, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? What can I improve on? And then really trying to incorporate it now as we're doing this live again. So slowly seeing the evolution of this whole process and taking people's feedback. We actually got a lot of fantastic feedback. I was surprised at the number of people who did view the show or parts of the show, and I was very pleased with what they actually gave us back as little nuggets, as far as, hey, I noticed
That's
that.
gold. That's
Right.
gold right
Well,
there.
it's because
Yeah.
it's a different perspective.
Sure.
It's the outsider's perspective, and it's your viewers. It's the people who are actually taking the time to listen to what you have to say.
Was
And
anybody
so,
just mean, or were they just like so constructive and
well,
helpful?
I'm sure that's coming down the road, but at least at the beginning, it's mostly friends and family. So most of the criticism that I received was very constructive. It was very much like, hey, I noticed this. Like, one of the things that one of the guys said, as a matter of fact, the reason that the chair changed was because, hey, man, I saw you that, you were kind of struggling there with the chair, kind of moved back and forth. So I was like, all right,
It's
man.
like a Seinfeld episode, right? Like,
Just
Chris, you need a
yeah.
different chair.
Yeah, exactly. So gotta change the chair. And then you and I were discussing as we were looking at the show ourselves, as we're cutting it up. It's like, hey, the lighting could be a little bit better. So let's change something. So now I
Yeah.
have like different lighting, right? The camera angles, how, and we both have communications backgrounds, right? So we both kind of have a little bit of that technical side. I've worked in a television studio as well, but it's different when it's your own thing. And you have to be, it's one thing when you're the person behind the camera, and then you have the talent in front, and then you have the producer in the booth, and then you have the sound guy so everybody's kind of doing their own thing.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's like, okay, John, you are the sound guy, and you are the producer, and you are so all of a sudden having,
and it's super easy to give advice, but it's hard to hit all those marks
totally
without anybody doing it for you, for sure.
Absolutely. So, but it's, but now, even as I'm kind of seeing what the product that we're putting together, even just today, kind of proud of the fact that what we got to episode number 2, considering this started as an idea, maybe 4 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, give or take, maybe.
Yeah, we
like
really threw some accelerant on the gas up about 3 or 4 weeks ago, for sure. It was
when,
like we were kicking the ball around, but it wasn't like, let's actually go live, let's do this.
Totally.
Until about 3 or 4 weeks ago.
And so the fact that it was kind of like, hey, do you think you'd want to do this? Oh, I don't know if I have the time. Well, how would we even execute it? I don't know. Hey, I got this program. Do you think it would work? Oh, well, let's try it. And I don't have a mic yet. I don't have a studio. I'm doing this from my living room.
Yeah.
So, but just being like, okay, let's do it. Let's just try to figure it out, and let's put something together and go. So that was a cool thing. And then juxtaposing that with seeing you on the show, because I actually got to watch you live on Friday, and my
so
own
how'd
experience.
I do? Be harsh. Let's go.
I thought you did great, man. I'm not gonna lie. I thought, because they're, as opposed to this, which is more conversational, theirs is a little bit more kind of interview style.
It's produced, but it's very, I mean, he has some tough questions. He has some easy ones, but yeah.
And I do like James' production, by the way. Like, I would love to get to the point where we can do that kind of stuff, where we're queuing in clips and sounds and different things, as opposed to just like a long format that you and I have right now. But so being able to see it as a spectator is definitely a little bit different than when the light literally is shining bright on you, and you're the one driving the car, if you will, right?
I got to give a shout out here to my buddy Joel, aka J Fingers on Instagram and Twitter. He produced the intro track for our
Thank you, brother.
first show that
That's awesome. Yeah, exactly.
that we released. And you know, he's so he plays organ, and he's actually the music producer for the LA Lakers. So
oh, there you go.
you know, I know I'm lucky to have him at home, not playing for the Lakers right now. So I hit him up and I said, hey, do you want to make me an intro track? And he said, sure. What's the theme? And actually John was the one. I was like, I don't know, John, like, what do you want to do? And John was like, well, think like, you know, 1995, you know, Jordan era Bulls intro. And so we actually told that to him, and I do think he nailed it. I think it's absolutely evokes those thoughts without being so overtly, you know, the same exact thing. So
what about on the production side? So the way we got this split up is I'm handling kind of the posting, the YouTube, the promo, and you're taking care of the physical production of cutting, editing, putting the stuff together. What did you find as you're obviously, you know, tagging on more responsibility into your already busy schedule? Like, how did you find that?
It's definitely something that you can do from anywhere, which is good, right? So we have the ability. It's not like I need a studio. Now, granted, when you came to me with this idea of I want to do a show and I want it to be live video, what did I say? What was my first inclination?
You were like, audio only.
No,
no video, audio only.
That's a nightmare to edit, right? So we kind of committed to, if we're going to do it like this, we just kind of have to do it long form. Yeah. I'm not going to go edit out every mistake. You know,
right now it is what it is.
Some stuff. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if it was just audio, I could sit there and really, I have a ton of experience in audio editing. I have very little experience in video editing. So we just roll with it, right? But even clipping and adding graphics and those things, it takes time. Yeah. The rendering process takes a long time. So once you're done with a 20-minute segment, you know, it takes probably at least that amount of time to render out into a video. And then you got to slide it up on some sort of site or medium or storage area for us to share. So that's the time consuming part, but you just got to get smart about how you kind of, you know, set it and forget it, if you will, and then come back to it and do the next step. And so that's kind of what I did. And like I said, I was traveling. I done things in the car. I was rendering videos in the passenger seat while I was waiting in the parking lot for something at one point.
That's right. I called you. That's right.
I'd gone to the post office and I took it in with me and I was rendering. So, you know, it's a journey. I'm sure it's going to continue, you know, because you're just trying to balance everything. But that's kind of the fun part, is like, I know I have a task. The task is something I chose to do. It's this show. And so, you know, you knock it out. That's the cool part.
And I think, I'll be honest, part of the really cool part for me is the accessibility, right? I think folks, if you really started looking at all of the tools that are available out there that are actually free. A lot of these tools are free. Some of them are a little, you know, you do have to pay for, but you know, the YouTube is free. I think inevitably when we do the audio only on, I think we're trying to put it on Apple and Spotify, all those other platforms. I think I'm not sure if there's a fee associated with it or not, but
we'll find out.
Yeah, exactly. We don't really.
We'll tell you next
yeah,
episode.
Exactly. But I mean, on the, for example, I saw that you put the audio only on Vimeo. Is that similar to how YouTube works as far as?
So Vimeo, those were audio clips that I had created video overlays for, just as teasers, right? So one of the things I wanted to do was say, okay, here's 60 seconds on what the show format is. Now I'm going to put this out as a teaser, but I'm going to put it out as a video. You just can't see us. It's just it's a moving, you know, kind of
graphic
thirds with a graphic. And so that stuff I just put on Vimeo as a second home to just be able to link things with. So, and that's something I'm learning too. It's like really all you need is an outlet to be able to tie things back to, and with, you know, with whatever post you have. So, but I'm still learning, like, where do I post this? Do I post it on LinkedIn? Is this, do I want to pepper my LinkedIn profile
everything
with the show? Do I just want to go Facebook because that's where I have the most followers? You know, it's an Instagram thing. It's a lot harder to get video content onto Instagram from an edited, you know, PC or, you know, Mac home, if you will. So, you know, it's kind of balancing all those things, and we're still playing around with them. So we're just asking people to kind of ride through the journey with us. Like, you know, find us where you can. We'll continue to push further so that it's easier to consume us, if you will. And, you know, let's see where it goes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I got a question for you as far as, I did see that you posted it on Instagram. I saw that you posted it on Facebook. I saw that I don't know if you put it on LinkedIn. Is this going to be something that you think you're going to be promoting everywhere? Or, because I'm having that, I'm trying to decide how do I balance it, right? Like how much promo is too much promo? And I'm assuming some marketing folks out there would say there's no such thing.
Well, no, so that's a great question. Here's what I learned this week. I didn't promo very well.
No,
I didn't tease very well. what my strategy for this week, and people will start to see this unfold, is I want to clip the upcoming show and give people snippets of the upcoming show. That is the thing that pulls you in. So if we're talking about, like our last segment, we were talking about, well, how did things go in the week for your business? If there's 60 seconds that's just absolute gold that makes people want to come in and participate in the whole segment, those are the things we need to start putting out into the world to say, hey, come in and listen. We're talking about this topic. If you're an up and coming realtor and you're having, some stagnation in closing that deal, here's how Duomo Realty, here's how John Case handles that, right? So that's a great clip if you can get it in front of those type of people, that they'll come in and listen to that segment, and maybe they'll stay around, maybe they won't. But that's kind of in all the moving parts that were last week. That's kind of how I feel like I missed, and so I'm admitting that I need to get better at that.
Okay, very cool. I think I'm going to do the same. I think part of what I think I'm going to ultimately end up doing is I'm going and we'll see how it goes, right? We'll see how it's received. But I think I'm going to go with the saturation, just go everywhere. Instagram, LinkedIn.
The saturation
Twitter.
Situation.
I mean, trying to see what gets traction, right? Part of this whole thing is kind of an experiment. See really where people are listening and what sticks and what doesn't. So I think for me, I'll be going down that road, and we can be happy to relay to folks, what works and what doesn't.
I had this epiphany today. Facebook is the place that it makes most sense to kind of tease or advertise that this show exists, because you're tapped into a lot of different networks, right? Your professional network, you might have some Facebook bleed in your professional network. Some people are like, hell no, I draw a box around my professional life and my personal life. Other people, they have coworkers on there, longtime coworkers, potentially even managers, former coworkers, people in the industry, right? So which is the case for me. I mean, I have a variety of different networks tied through Facebook.
Yeah.
But Facebook is such a nightmare right now. It's such a terrible place to be on the daily. So the internal struggle is like, I want to put this on Facebook because I want people in my network to see that it's out there.
Yeah.
But I hate 90% of what's going on Facebook right now. So I'm like in this crossroads of like, I'm contributing to a network that's kind of diminishing in value for me, but at the same time, I want people to know that this is happening. So I really don't have a choice. It's the best medium. It's just kind of a bummer right now. Like, to me, like every time I log on to Facebook for any other reason, I'm like, what am I seeing? I can't unsee this. I can't unknow someone's opinion about this.
Right.
And I'm not the type of person that blocks you because I don't like what you post online, because I think there's way more to a person than anything that they post online. But it's just like people are doing stupid stuff, and I think that they should reconsider, because they're really great people and they're not putting that message out into the world. And so anyway, I'm off my soapbox on Facebook.
One of the things I did want to talk about, which kind of links into what we had previously talked about, is this idea of persistence, man. And I like what you and I have been doing so far. I like the work that we put in, and I think about, for example, sometimes I feel like people have this idea that people who are successful, it's because they're, I don't know, special, or they have a gift that not everybody else has.
Or they got lucky, or they were born that way.
Right, exactly. There's a variety of different sort of monikers that people can utilize or say that, this person was this or this person was that. But I really, what I've sort of learned, and this thing that we're doing right now sort of reinforces, is this idea of just kind of chipping away at it, kind of sticking with it. And because I'll tell you, sitting there for an hour and some change trying to figure out how to upload one of these videos because the system won't let me, because it's
it makes you want to tap out.
Right. It's like, oh my God, what am I doing? Right. Like this is, and then I'm doing this for fun. I'm doing this for enjoyment purposes.
It's a hobby. It's like golf.
Right. Exactly. Oh. Exactly. And so, but then, and it took a real moment of reflection as I'm sitting here, like, on my time off, trying to figure this platform out. And then I think back to like, wow, well, but everything that you've ever done in the past has been sort of based off of that. I've never been the kind of person that's like one shot, boom, hole in one. Everything's like, to use your golf analogy, right? Boom, dink, pow, good. No, it's always been like trial and error. Try this, that doesn't work. Try it again, maybe from a different perspective or a different angle or a different time of day, whatever it is, and slowly chipping away and figuring things out. And I can tell you, whether it was like finally making the decision to go to law school, like it was a knowing what it took from the folks that I'd spoken to actually go to law school and go through that process, it was challenging, right? It was one of those things where, well, what if I try and I fail, and what are people going to think about me, and how are people going to look at me, and what are they going to say, you know?
Didn't somebody tell you, just give me 80 grand and I'll light it on fire and punch you in the face or something like that? Wasn't that a real life testimonial that somebody gave you? That must have been somebody else.
I mean, no, but at that
Is
point,
that how it felt?
by the way, 80K would have been cheap. I would have taken
Right.
80K compared to what I'm actually.
Well, that's the street value of a law degree and a punch in the face.
Like if they would have said 80K for the whole 3 years, I would have taken that. But
Right.
no.
Sold. I want to key in on this though, because so for the listeners who don't know you, like you're a super persistent dude, and it's kind of like your thing, right? So
yeah.
in these moments in your life where you've been kind of up against it, and obviously publishing the podcast is far from the heaviest thing you had to lift and move around. What's your thought process? Get me inside your head when it comes to like, okay, not only is there a critical decision that you got to say, am I going down this law school thing is a long game? Am I going down this road? But then when law school gets difficult, when conflicting deadlines happen, when grades start to slip, like what keeps you on pace? What's your underlying motivation there?
So two-part answer for that. The first part is really making a committed decision. Like the minute that have you ever heard the expression burning the boats? Like,
yeah,
basically
burn the ships. If you want to take the village, burn the ships.
Right. There's no going back, right?
By the way, the Dallas Mavericks, who are celebrating the 9-year anniversary of winning the title, and they are my NBA team of that I cheer for. Rick Carlisle said that when they went back to Miami and they only packed one suit, and he said the reason why we're only packing one suit is because we're not coming back for Game 7. If you want to take the village, burn the ships. And they did. They went on to win. It was legendary. They beat LeBron. They beat Bosh. They beat D-Wade. We won a championship more recently than the LA Lakers have. Look it up.
Oh, wow. Look at this.
Unlikely.
Look at this.
The Lakers only have like 26 other ones that they could hang over my head. But anyway, if you want to take the village, burn the ships is a great
exactly. So to Carlisle's point, right? Once you make a committed decision, it's like, that's it. And I remember, I'll use two examples. I remember when I made that decision to go for it, I really took stock of like, okay, what do I have to do? And so most people wouldn't want to admit this, but for example, I took the LSAT 3 times and the first time that I took the LSAT, I felt so poorly about how I did that I didn't even get my score. It was one of those things where I took the exam, I got out, like, and I was like, well, I know what it's going to look like because I know how I felt. So I'm like, I'm out. No, we're not going to go ahead, and because at that time, I don't know if it still is like that now. This is going on 10 years ago, 12, no, longer than that, 07, so 13 years ago.
God,
you could actually, yeah, right. You could after taking the exam, you could faxes, ladies and gentlemen. I had to fax in. I had to send a fax letting.
Don't fax us, people. We're not going to get back to you if you fax us.
I had to fax in a sheet letting the examiners know that I didn't want to know my score, and so they wouldn't even let me know. They wouldn't even let me know my score. Right? I could just say
that was practice.
Yeah, I could just that's well, okay. Persistence though.
Not a game.
That's what it became. It became practice, right?
Yeah,
so the first time that I took the exam, I was like, okay, now I know sort of what this is about, right?
Yeah, took that punch to the chin. Let's
and took it. Took it again, and the next one was a haymaker because now I did get the score, and I was like, "Oh my god! Like this is
hell
just,
did the last one look
yeah,
like?
Exactly. If this one looks like this, well, then I was that fax was a good fax. I'm glad I sent that fax.
Right.
But in every instance, I took stock of what I did. Like, what did I do? Where could I improve? What could I change? Where were my sort of misgivings, if you will? What areas need more attention? Where am I good at? Where can I kind of, if I keep doing what I'm doing, that'll maintain? And what areas that I didn't do as well in, what things can I do to improve? And so
are the LSATs a situation where like it's a 1-to-1 ratio of if you study, you'll do better? Or is it kind of like an innate knowledge meets studying meets test taking to perform the ultimate score?
I think it's practice, man. It's knowing what the examiners are looking for. That's my own personal take. Because honestly, the same thing happened with the bar, and that's another story for another day. But essentially, it is that one of the things that I began to realize is that any type of standardized test, there's a method to the madness. The whoever is writing the test is looking to know whether you know something. That's what they're going for, right? They're putting together something to test you to see if you know what they think that you need to know in order to get to where you want to go.
In order to just go study law, not even to do law, right? This is the way into, for those of you who don't know, the LSATs are the way you get into law school, not even the way you get,
it's the entry exam, correct. It's the entrance exam to, that you put together with your application. So by the time I took it the third time, I was like, okay, I already know how. I've already been there, so there's no more jitters, right? Like I know that I'm going to get there at 8 a.m. and I got to have my pencils. Back in the day, I'm assuming they still use pencils, but Scantron, the whole thing. Maybe everything's not on a computer.
You need to fact check that. Are people still using pencils? Are they still sharpening pencils?
In 2020, are we still using pencils? Yeah.
Right.
But back then there were pencils and Scantrons and the whole thing, and so it was okay. I know exactly how this day is going to go because I've lived it now twice. I know exactly how this day is going to go.
It's all about the test. Everything else is just noise. I'm not intimidated by the room.
And I know. Okay, you want to talk about being ready? I scouted the testing area beforehand. I drove to Central San Diego to figure out where was the room, where could I park, where I wanted to have.
Where are the AC ducts?
Everything. There was a full scouting report John Case put together.
In case of a fire, the exits are.
There was going to be no stone left unturned. Like, so I wanted to know, like, where can I park? Where is the room?
By the way, this shows more about your personality and your persistence than the actual results of the test.
Well, true, right? But essentially by that third time. So I'm locked in, like, okay. And not only that, doing practice exams were key for me. So anybody out there who's thinking about doing this, definitely do your practice exams, go over them and over them. And to the point where I did the same thing for the broker's exam. I would take the same exam until I got every question right.
I'm starting to think you just like taking tests, man. I mean, the LSATs, the bar, the broker's exam. What's next? You're going to become like a neurosurgeon or something? But the only thing you're missing.
I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, it's just the process. It's just, and the idea is get it in your head that, like, the ships are burned. Like, I have nowhere else to go. Like, where am I going to go? Like, the ships are done. Like, that's it. I have to go this way.
The business person in me says, can you monetize this? Like, can you monetize your ability to overcome the LSATs and the bar? And, I don't know how difficult the broker's exam is. You don't hear horror stories about that one necessarily. But I mean, you was your target Ohio State? Because you went to Ohio State. So, or is it like, I'm going to get my LSAT scores and see what plays?
So the target was, I just want to go into law school, right? That was I was like, I just want to go get a law degree because I think that it would help me in my career. That was the thought process, right?
That's fair.
So, but then once a little sidebar, with that second LSAT, I applied to 3 schools. I live in San Diego. I applied to Cal Western, Thomas Jefferson, USD. My score, my second score, the one that I told you was low, was so low that those schools, Cal Western and USD from jump, were like, Mr. Case, thank you for applying. We appreciate your application and and the money that you provided with it, and have a great day.
Thanks for the donation, and you can keep your facts.
Correct. But the third school, Thomas Jefferson, they kept me on the hook. They were like, okay, so we put you on the wait list, and what that means is, and you're like number whatever. That means that if any of the people above you who have been accepted decide to not attend, you will take that slot. You can move into that slot. But there were people even on the wait list ahead of me. I was like number 9 or 10 or something like that. Can't remember at this point. And so they kept me going. So this is, I get my conditional letter of acceptance.
So you're in the game-ish.
Sort
at this
of,
point.
exactly.
Yeah.
Ish is the great way to put it. In the game-ish. And summer starts and the school starts in the fall, right? So I get my letter and they're like, okay. So I call them up and I'm like, hey, I got this letter. I don't understand what it means. Can you explain it to me? Well, they said exactly what I just said a second ago. I'm like, okay. So then a couple of weeks
passed. We're dating, we just haven't gone on a date yet. That's kind of what it says.
If my current boyfriend decides to no longer date me, then Mr. Case, you can step up on the other 9 people in front of you. And if they don't want to date me,
you don't get primetime weekend.
No, not at all.
No. Thursday night.
Like a Tuesday at 3. Would you take it?
Bruncher.
So they keep me on the hook. And so I'm like calling in and like, hey, calling the admissions office. Hey, is there any news? No, Mr. Case. Calling again. Hey, no. It got to the point, this is no joke, they knew who I was when I called. And they were
That's not
like,
good.
there is no news. We'll call you when we have news.
Don't call us. We'll
And
call
so
you.
we're not May, June, July. Well, law school starts in the middle of August. At least most semester schools start in the middle of August.
Uh-huh.
And at this point, I'm like, we're now into August. What is going on, right? And so first week of August, I call again, and they're like, yeah, we know who you are, and we regret to inform you that you have not been accepted.
Yikes.
So whereas in my head, I have made up this idea or this thought that I might be going to school and I have to get things ready. That's out the window. So it's at that moment that the boats get burned. At that moment, it's like, okay, that's it. Persistence, right? I'm getting
Well, not necessarily though, because at this point you could just tap out, right?
Oh no,
I mean,
no,
you've dumped some money into this project, but you haven't gone. I wouldn't say the boats are burned yet. I mean, maybe that's your mentality, but some of us would have just tapped out right then and there and said, you know what, this isn't for me.
Well, that was the mentality.
That's you, not everyone.
At that point, I was like, okay. At that point, I was like, I kind of got upset. I was like, these guys, I'm going to show them. I'm going to show them. They're going to learn. Like, they're going to learn the name John Case. And so from that moment forward, I basically studied my butt off, took the exams, and I actually, so by this point, by the way, dude, I've taken courses, I've studied books, and now I'm taking another course to take this darn exam, right?
Yeah.
But at this point, there's kind of like a clarity, like this is going to happen. You're
now laser focused.
100%. And so, whereas the first time I applied to just 3 schools, this time I'm applying everywhere, 22 schools. University of Colorado.
I'm assuming
Suffolk
that's
University.
not a cheap application.
It's not. I spent almost $2,500 on applications alone.
Now.
I have to. No, because I'm going to law school. Like that's what I said. Persistence. I'm going to law school. Like the thought, like you said, get in my head. In my head, the switch had turned, and it's like, now I'm going to law school. Now it's no longer I might get in or not. Now it's no longer, well, we'll see what happens. Now it's like, I'm going to law school. And so I take my LSAT again. This time I get a somewhat decent score. And now I'm like applying like a madman everywhere. The whole country, peppered the whole country. So California, a bunch of schools in California, schools up in Washington, a school up in Oregon, some in Colorado, Boston, New York, Michigan, the Ohio State, my alma mater. Let's see, University of Georgia, Miami, University of Florida, like everywhere. I'm like, I am getting in. And at this point, with having studied, having known what to expect, really doing much, much better on the exam, put together a killer application, boom, all of a sudden I get into 11 out of the 22. So now at this point,
big change.
Totally different.
You're nobody's side piece at this point.
Exactly right. I'm not. Exactly right. So for me, the persistence was like, I'm going to keep doing it and doing it. It was like, I'm doing this until it happens, right? Until it, there is no other way. And let me piggyback that off real quick with another story. So I make it into law school, right? Cool. My first semester, I do terrible because at this point I'm older than most of my classmates. I'm in my late 20s at this point. I've been out of school for a while. I've been working, and so
people aren't faxing anymore.
Exactly right. People are now pencils are gone. Pencils are gone. There's no more sketch. And but most of my classmates have just rolled over from undergrad into law school.
Right.
So they're used to the game, right? I haven't, dude. I've been going to Charger games. I've been hanging out with my buddies. Like I've been living life, right? My mid-20s were, until I made that decision to really focus on the studying part, I had been living life. I had been just, had a job, 9 to 5, the regular thing. And so shifting over to that, because I mean, you can imagine law school, you're studying all the time, every day, all day. That's all you do.
Yeah.
And so my first semester, 2 things happen. My contracts professor first semester pulls me in after the first big exam. Contracts is your first big exam, at least at Ohio State. And it's kind of like lays the groundwork for where you're going to go. Mm-hmm. He pulls me into his office and he's like, Mr. Case, this is your score. And he's like, oh, not a good score. And he's like, are you sure law school's for you? Are you sure you're supposed to? I was like, wow.
Like, I didn't go through all this to be asked this. Right
exactly. Now. I was looking at this dude, like, this dude's really calling me out right now. Like, this dude is really like, and I was like, man, I was bummed. I was just like,
I'm guessing this is another igniter.
Oh, this. Yeah, exactly right. So that happens. And then serendipity as well. Like a couple of days later down the semester, I'm walking through the hallway, and one of our deans is putting on a presentation on what it takes to graduate from law school, like what us as 1Ls, the 1L is the first year of law school, can anticipate in order to be able to graduate. And the dean sits there in one of the classrooms. And I have a witness, by the way, like this is all 100% true, because I have a gentleman who was right there with me next to me. And we walk in and we're listening. I think it was Dean Northern who was speaking. And she was like, if you get 88 credits, you need 88 credits and don't fail more than 2 classes, I believe. I think that's what it was. It's been a while. It's been like 13 years, but I think that's what it was. 88 credits, don't fail more than 2. You will walk out of The Ohio State University with a law degree. Okay. And I remember raising my hand. I'm sitting there at the back and I'm like, I raise my hand.
Point of clarity.
And I was like, okay, so let me get this straight. You're saying all I have to do is just, and I rephrased it. So I have to earn 88 credits and I can fail up to 2 classes. and you will give me a law degree. She's like, yes, Mr. Case, you will earn a law. And it was in that moment that I said, I am not leaving the state of Ohio without a law degree. I don't leave the state. If I don't have a law degree, I just never go back to California.
Because there's no ship, you burned it. So you can't get back.
And it was like, and at that point, the persistence kicks in, right? I have to figure out, like, how do I prove my contracts professor wrong? How do I figure out, how do I study better? How do I become a better student? I formed a study group. I got together with people in my class who were doing better than me. Like, so the persistence kicks in and like, I got to figure out something so that I can get to where I want to go, be who I want to be, and do what I want to do. And so that persistence is one of those things that, it's not because I'm like super smart. Like I took the LSAT 3 times. It took me a long time. You look at my grades in college and in law school. They're not blowing anybody away. Yeah. But at the end of the day, they still call me lawyer. Mm-hmm. And it's because when you decide to do something, if you just keep at it over and over and over again, I think there's real power in that. And I think people could definitely, if you buy into it, like if you really believe it, like there's a reason Carlisle only packed 1 suit. Right. There's a reason that happened. He was like, we're winning or we're not.
Yeah, it's all mental. I gotta let these guys know in their heart that I believe they could win.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna be naked tomorrow if I'm wrong, but you know what? I believe in these guys, so I'm gonna do this big show of support and faith.
Exactly.
So, I think there's so much more to this story, man. This is probably, we're gonna have to unpack this probably.
We can do that another time, but yeah,
segment, because there's obviously a whole nother persistent story around you passing the bar. I know you've passed in multiple states, so we got to unpack that a little bit. But I definitely don't want to, try to speed through it or anything like that. So
no. But
we'll move that to another day,
the key, exactly. The key idea is if you want something, and it goes, for example, this podcast, right? This very thing, it's like figuring things out takes time, but you have to be willing to stick with it. You have to be willing to take your lumps and figure things out and see what you can do with it.
That's the lesson. Let's talk about serendipity. We were kind of reading each other's minds at the exact same time when we brought it to the forefront of, we definitely need to talk about this on the show, which is Chappelle's latest release on Netflix. So 846 was released, I believe this week, not too long ago. So by the time this airs, this might be about a week from airing, and we both kind of gravitate towards it right away. Chappelle being, if you're of a certain age, Dave Chappelle is like the man. I mean, he's the comedian. He, not only that, even when he's talking and he's not saying anything funny, it's captivating. He brings perspective of race, and he's very fair, in my opinion, to everybody and every race, and he doesn't hold back, and his show was the same way. So watching 846, I've listened to it, I've watched it. I know you've done the same. You've given it a couple runs. What is the most thought-provoking part of, and by the way, so if you're listening and you want to know what the heck we're talking about, you can watch this on Netflix, it's on YouTube, it's pretty available on the different streaming networks. But what was the thing that really captivated you, really grabbed a hold of you during that? Because it's only about 25, 30 minutes.
It's about 20, I think 27 minutes total, something like that. I'll be honest, and I did watch it several times actually, and every time that I listened to it and watched it, I picked up on different things. But to me, not so much the content, and I do want to ask you a couple of questions as to the setting. We'll get into that in a second. To me, it was just the emotion. Honestly, the raw emotion that you could see.
Raw.
So
the whole
raw.
Thing is so raw.
That's to me
it's like he's in his backyard just ranting.
100%. That was the thing for me that just, I was like, dude, like this dude sounds like he's hurting. This dude,
Yeah.
like it's unlike any other stand. I wouldn't even call it stand up, right? It was more like a talk maybe,
It's not
or
much of a show from a
no,
performance standpoint.
not at
He's
all.
wearing joggers and it's like he's not dressed for the occasion.
Mm-mm,
He's sitting there hunched over on a fireplace looking
mm.
hearth, and he's
He's got his little
smoking
notebook. He's got like his little,
cigarettes
yeah. He's got his
and
cigarettes in his little notebook, and he kind of peers into it
yeah.
every now and then. But
It's like, man, we're more squared away when we record our little YouTube show than this guy is for
yeah,
seemingly the event of the summer. I mean, it's not competing with much, but
yeah.
I mean, so yeah, super raw for sure.
That was the thing. So for me, it was obviously the subject matter we'll get into too, but it was after having watched it a couple times, it was definitely that rawness, that emotion, and it almost seemed like although he had a general progression that he was going to follow, he kind of bounced around a lot,
See, I
which
don't
is
think he
unlike.
stuck to it. I think he
Yeah,
had a
that's what I'm
plan
saying.
and he
Yeah,
just
and he
burned
didn't.
it as soon as he went on stage. He
I
was
would
like, you know
agree.
what? I'm not
Mhm.
going to talk about that right now. And then he's like, yeah, I am. And because I'm Dave
He
Chappelle,
kind
I
of
can do
came. He
whatever I
kind of
want.
came
And I don't have to ease
exactly.
into this. I can just go.
Because if you've ever watched his stand-up, he's very smooth in transitioning from topics to topic. He's very
Yeah,
he's very eloquent in the way he kind of moves and goes about
sure.
bringing in different subject matter and different things. So his stand-up is super polished,
More
right?
so back in the day, like when he was up and coming,
Yeah,
he had to be very kind of, I don't want to say strict because he floats around a little bit,
yeah,
even in the older stuff. But as he's made a name for himself, it's like, I know I can dress this down and it'll still be good because
hmm,
people trust me. I'm a trusted source.
right.
So I mean, my thing was, I guess the thing that he pointed out to me that I wasn't really as knowledgeable or prepared to hear, and it certainly stuck with me and it will stick with me forever now, is how close we actually are today to slavery. Like he talks
Oh,
about his great grandfather born a slave and ends up being a political activist and ends up being invited to the White House by Woodrow Wilson in South Carolina right after a black man was killed over a $30 dispute. Like the way he teed that up, um, talking about how we're not far removed from this. This is my great
oh,
grandfather. He was born a slave. You know, the his wife, his grandfather's wife, was the name that his father called out on his deathbed when he died. Like that was so powerful to me to think like he heard his great grandfather's name. This man is not a distant memory. It's a real person that he thinks about and knows stories about. William David Chappelle was his name. He was named after him. And I was like, man, that just like gave me chills to hear that. Like we're 3.5, 4 generations removed from, African Americans being born as slaves. That his great grandfather's generation had to navigate through slavery to whatever gain that they were able to, like anything that they achieved in their lifetime was amazing, right? If they went from slave to anything better than slave, that was a miracle in itself. And that really hit hard to me because as somebody who doesn't really unpack that on a daily basis, because I don't need to, and that's my call it whatever you want, my gift, my privilege, I don't have to deal with that. I don't have to sit here and think about, well, what did my great grandfather, how did he get out of the struggle? That was just so powerful for me.
well, I mean, kind of tangentially on, I think it was, I want to say June 11, uh, was the anniversary of interracial marriages being allowed by the Supreme Court here in the United States. 1967 was the year. So if you
Okay,
think about it, 1967, what is that? That's somebody's grandparent.
that's
That's some.
one generation
That's
away.
one generation. So think
Yeah,
about that. One generation
I mean, my
ago,
mom was
it was
alive,
it was
so
illegal for people to marry if they were of different. Let's just call it colors, right? Let's
yeah,
just to simplify, right?
sure.
To that blows my mind, the fact that, and people seem to, and that's why I say we have made great strides, right? We have had progress, we have moved forward, but I don't think you can ever discount the fact that not very long ago, for all the progress that we've made, you
Hmm.
can turn around and say, wow, things were way different and not that long ago. To your
Yeah,
point of his great grandfather being a slave, right? Well, for not even a generation ago, it was illegal for interracial couples to get married. It's just one of, or even now, like same sex couples, things like that. So I'm sure that down the road, when we look back and we'll say, oh my God, like where were we then and where we are now? That juxtaposition always kind of gets people thinking.
Yeah.
I think very much so. Mr. Chappelle was able to bring it together of like, wow, guys, like we talk about all these great strides, but don't ever forget that not that long ago, my great grandfather was a slave. My great grandfather had to like earn the right to be free.
Yeah.
And
And we're
so,
so young. We're so new at this as a nation. Like we
yeah.
haven't been at this that long.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like looking at the stock market. Like anybody could tell you as an investor, if you look at the stock market over a long period of time, it's always a good investment, right? If you're looking at a 30-year run, it's good.
Mhm.
And I think you could say the same thing about activism and civil rights and all that, but like we're crashing on those fronts right now, or at least it's being exposed that maybe we've been crashing for quite some time. It's like a lagging economic indicator of how racial inequities have been for years. And but overall things have been getting better
Yeah.
steadily, right? If you look at a 30-year trend, it's same-sex marriages are
Right.
now
It's a rising
legal.
stock, right? It's a stock that's performing well.
Ultimately the long game, yeah, but it's like that. But that, like I said in our last show, on the last segment of our last show, like that's not good enough.
Right.
Our We only have the time that we have, right? I mean, I don't know what you believe, if you believe you reincarnate, or if you believe you go to heaven, or whatever you
Right.
believe, you still only get this time on earth
Right now.
as this human being to put your stamp on it. And if it were all to end tomorrow for any one of us, we wouldn't be happy with where we're at right now. So but the I guess the positivity takeaway for me with that epiphany of holy crap, like 4 generations ago, somebody in Dave Chappelle's family was a slave,
Right.
was that gives me a lot of hope that we could turn this around, and in the next 10 years be looking at all the victories that we had from this point forward. Like, okay, we have significant police reform. We have these 8 laws that they kind of put in place to govern on a federal basis every police department, so that there's not one department that does it really well and another department in a different neck of the woods that does it
Not
terribly.
so
And
good. Right.
right, so I mean, that gives me a lot of hope in a situation where it certainly feels like the world's falling apart on any given day right now. And another thing that really struck me was when he talked about the kind of the last time that a big wave of protests happened, and then policemen got killed and all that, and he ties it back to sports, which is always something that I can relate to. He ties
Of
it back to
course.
Kobe's last game and how
Right.
he
The
watched him
60
drop
points.
60. and
Right.
and that was certainly, I could picture myself literally in the same position as he was, like flipping back and forth. Like that kind of grabbed me, because I was like, he was me. Like I was flipping back and forth. Like I know the world's ending and everything's burning and people are dying in the streets, but like Kobe's about to drop 60. Like and I guess it's okay. It's okay to say that, right? Like it's okay to say we were watching both of those things simultaneously, and they were equally as impactful on us, especially being from the greater LA area for all of my life. Like that was a significant moment in quote unquote LA history. And then to basically lose Kobe, and to go through this. Oh, and by the way, we went through a pandemic already this year, and it's not
Still
even half.
going.
We're
Yeah.
not even
Still
halfway
going.
through the
Yeah.
year. Like
Still
this,
going.
I mean, I don't know. It just kind of, it was like, dude, if we're still, smiling every day through all this, then we can get through this. Like we're gonna kick ass the rest of this year, and put a good finish to it.
I did have a question for you specifically, because it's funny, because although the content really captivated me, right? Like I said, the rawness, the way he expressed himself, the fact that it looked like he was jumping from one thing to another and then coming back. It was like the production side, based off of what you do kind of
Yeah.
professionally. What did you think of the fact, the kind of the show venue, kind of the logistical nightmare of you're putting on an open air performance? People are being spaced out. I think they didn't have more than 2 chairs per little area. I think if you look at the
Yeah,
video,
it
you
was
can see that.
significantly
Right.
spaced.
Right. It's
Yeah,
like there's a lot
no
of space.
parties of
Everybody,
4 at all. So if
no,
you came with
exactly.
6 people, you
You
were
were
like
spaced
two,
out.
two, two.
Everybody had a
Yeah,
mask on. I think everybody had a mask on.
I think they
People were
gave out masks. They had branded Chappelle
is that why everybody
masks.
had the branded? Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
I think they gave, that was like part of your. By the way, that's going to be table stakes for any live event from here on out. For a while, it's
Masks.
like provide
Provide your own masks.
standardized mask, because you can't say, oh well, your mask doesn't cut it, or your nose is exposed. Like you can't run somebody out of your event because their mask doesn't fit your.
Hmm.
It's like saying, well, you can't hear and we don't have assisted listening devices on, and so you can't consume this event. Like, no, you have to have an assisted listening device. If somebody shows up that's deaf to an event, you have to have an out. You have to have some way to help them consume or watch the show. So it's the same. It's gonna be the same with masks. Like you have to have the right PPE, if you will, to get through the show. But what I thought was like, I think the goal of this was really to watch Dave Chappelle in his backyard cutting it up. Like I think that was the vibe. So they didn't really have a high standard of production.
I mean, short. It was like I said, 27 minutes, right? It was like boom,
well,
boom.
And that's what Netflix put out. We don't know if he
True.
Actually did some jokes and then he decided, well, this wasn't socially relevant or this watered down the message, you know, and so they cut the jokes out or whatever. It's hard to say. I suspect that he didn't have people come out for 25 minutes of content, that he really did a whole show. You know, he did like a Chappelle bit and then
gotcha. But they just sliced it up and put this portion out.
I don't know, I could be wrong. Maybe we'll get some like, you know, second wave of like, oh, here's actually the jokes that he did.
Because I mean, it seemed like he put it, I mean, the timestamp on the video says June 6th. Today is the 14th. So
they cranked it.
So they exactly like that was like they put that together.
But if it was just like segment 1 clip, you know, we put out segment 2 and you did 3 segments, we only put out the second one or whatever. I mean, certainly doable in the post-production. But another takeaway I had was like, people just want to see this right now. Like this is so needed. And it really was overly cautious the way they did it, right? Everyone kind of drives out in the middle of nowhere.
I mean, it looks like a big
By the way, how many places have you been to so far where they took your temperature?
Just like I said last show, the one restaurant.
The restaurant.
Because even now, I went to another restaurant just to pick up food, and they let me in. I had my mask on, but they let me in. They didn't really make too big a deal of that. So I don't know the temperature taking thing, if it's just kind of unilateral or if it's just kind of place by place. Yeah, exactly.
I'm amazed though, because we went to a furniture store and they took our temperature there.
Oh wow!
And this was like a huge warehouse. Like there was we weren't within 20 feet of anybody, but except for the temperature taker guy. But I'm just surprised. I guess I'm surprised when people so willingly let people take their temperature, but like they get all weird about other stuff, about other rights being infringed. Like, sometimes with data.
Well, this temperature thing is new, man. Like I'll be honest. Like I've seen some of the things that they're doing in other countries and it's like super invasive.
Contact tracing.
There's a contact tracing, but like I've seen certain things that I believe it's in China where they have like full on like thermodynamic technology where they can just read your body. Like they don't even have to ask you.
What if they insisted on a rectal thermometer? Like you went somewhere you really wanted to go and they're like, dude, the only way you're getting in here is if you're taking this thermometer up the ass. What do you say?
I think it's going to be like, how much do I really want to be in that venue? Like how much do I want to watch?
Like there's how much do I really
like do I want to watch Kevin Hart that bad? Like is the new Kevin Hart special that awesome that I have to put myself through this? Maybe I have to. I don't know. I off the top of my head, I really don't know if there is anything that I would consider. But I mean, I'm sure
it scares me out there that would be like they make a thermometer that goes there. That's what scares me. Is like I mean, if you're willing to submit to the scanner one, then maybe someone's.
I mean, those were like I believe that was a long time before the little laser that they can point away from a nice safe distance.
We're way off topic, of course, but no, I encourage people to watch the Chappelle.
Absolutely.
Thought-provoking. It kind of sent me down a rabbit hole of like.
Did you start looking at did you remember that shooting, by the way, the Dallas shooting, the officers? Did you recall that?
Oh, yeah.
I remember watching that real time.
Well, the Chris Dorner story happened in my backyard. The
Chris Dorner was even, he
brought up Chris Dorner and I was telling my wife, like, do you remember this? And she was like, oh, I don't really remember that. I'm like, this dude was like.
There was like a week-long manburn or something like that, right?
He went up to Big Bear, which is not far from us. And I mean, they like he said in the show, they switched cheesed him. I mean, they burned that dude out. But I didn't know the whole backstory of why he was flipping out. I just knew that he flipped out. I didn't understand like the plot of how he got to that point. And it says so much about where we are right now. Like the fact that all those injustices happened to him and he felt like there was nothing else he could do, but, basically just turn the gun on officers and start, hurting and killing them and their families. But that's a little heavy, but
yeah, no, well, but I mean, I think it's one of those things that I think that's why this Chappelle show is so impactful, right? Like he's highlighting things because there's a lot of people that, and I don't want to harp on things that we've already covered last week, but there's a lot of people that are like, guys, this is just a couple of bad apples. This is just, certain instances. If people would just do what they're supposed to do, none of this would happen. And it's like, guys, no, the institution itself needs to be revisited. We created this. Mm-hmm. And then we have the ability to change it. Once something no longer serves its purpose, then you have to reconsider why it's there.
Yeah,
And
and extremists are saying, well, let's just defund, let's just basically hit the reset
but
button.
that's going completely the other way. Like the idea isn't, this isn't an on and off. This isn't a computer. This isn't zeros and ones, on and off, yes or no.
Right.
There's a lot of
That's a great
gradient
point.
there,
Yeah.
right? There's a lot of gradient there that you can
Yeah.
work with. Like you still need police. Like I wholeheartedly believe that you can't just have a lawless society, right? So,
Right.
but at the same time, you can't have people that use the badge in a way where it's to take advantage of other people. That's where we kind of should draw the line, and especially when it comes into people dying. Like just yesterday, there was a gentleman that died in Atlanta at a or is it Friday? I believe it was Friday. Another one of these incidents happened. So it's like
Carl's Jr., right?
Wendy's. It was a Wendy's.
Oh, Wendy's.
It was a Wendy's. But at the end of the day, it's like we have to revisit this idea of when is it okay to use lethal force? When is it okay to infringe on somebody's rights? When is it okay to to go in a direction where it's like, is everybody being treated this way? Are just certain people being treated this way? How are, and who polices the police, right? Because if it's just a system where they're supposed to keep track of their own, well, they're showing that they can't.
I was going to say, I'm guessing it's really difficult to make that decision if you're the officer, because you know everything that's going on right now. You also know there's probably a 90% chance that somebody's filming this exchange. And if you make the wrong decision, that they're going to burn your town to the ground and you're going to be in jail for murder. And yet still people are making the same mistakes. So it must be difficult. The only conclusion in my mind that I could come to is this is hard. Like
100%.
It's not easy to defend yourself, and you're also a representation of yourself and your family, and you got to keep yourself healthy, and you're going into these situations where it's late at night and it's dark and you're looking in cars, and like I could just only imagine how difficult it is to be on the other side because they keep screwing it up. Like, and it's not all I can't believe that it's all bad apples, in the sense that it's all people that got the badge just to go kill people in the streets that they don't like. It's got to be miscalculation. It's got to be human error. And that's the horrifying part, is like these people are on their best behavior right now, probably, hopefully, right?
And even
the
then
vigilantes in the department are probably sitting at a desk right now doing desk work, hopefully, if you're the supervisor.
Think, right?
I mean, sit John Wayne down for a while and have him do paperwork while we get through this.
Right.
But they're still doing it. So it's got to be, it's more than systemic racism. It's also it's a freaking hard job. And like I saw a meme that was like, well, nobody wrote a song called "Fuck the Fire Department" or whatever. Like, that's, but like that job, I don't want to say that job's not as hard. It's certainly at times harder, but the decisions you have to make when you're fighting a fire,
I didn't hear that before,
are not necessarily, like, you're always going to save the victim in that case, right? You're never running into a fire and having to decide, do I need to kill the person in front of me or save them, right? It's usually like save. In every case. So not to diminish anything about what a firefighter does on a daily basis, but policing's hard, man. And it's going to be hard to fix that part of the job for sure.
But I think and to kind of wrap this up, I think Dave said a key thing where he said, I'm willing to take a back seat on this one, right? I'm willing to let you guys be the driver and be the voice and keep doing what you're doing. And I do think that there is some value to that, because I think at one point he asked, like, who wants to hear from a celebrity at this point? And everybody's like, nah.
Wants to hear what Ja Rule has to say.
Yeah, exactly. So
definitely nobody wants to hear from Ja Rule. That's for sure.
It's one of those things where I think the voice of the people has to be heard, and I think he was a great conduit to bring that to the forefront and to sort of encourage people, like, continue to let your voice be heard, and do so within the context of, like, this is what's happening, this is the things that we have seen, and sort of buttoning it up with, this is how it makes me feel, like I'm torn up about this. You can hear it in his voice, you can see it in his person. It's like he's definitely, this has affected him. This has genuinely right. So, and hopefully by people seeing that, they're more apt and more willing to explore what avenues we have to try to fix this, so that we can make it better for everybody down the road.
Yeah, he mentioned Don Lemon, and I was watching CNN when Don Lemon went on that rant.
I was too.
About, right? A lot of us were, because they had all the coverage of everything.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, like, afterwards, not during his, like, well, celebrities need to step up and say something, but like, maybe a day later. So I was thinking, what celebrity do I want to hear from right now?
Right.
Obviously, no one's going to ask me. They shouldn't. But I would say Chappelle. Like, if you asked me before the special, who do you want to hear from right now? who can make art out of this, if you will, like do something thought-provoking and true and honest and raw. And I would say, he would have been in my top 3 for sure. I want to hear from Chappelle. I want to hear what he has to say. He has the perspective. He's been through situations. He's totally okay with making fun of his race, other races, people that weave through the race debate or politics or whatever. So it was really cool to watch. I could watch one of those a week if you put it out. Right. So, Mr.
Highly
Chappelle,
encourage everybody to check it out. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Well, hey man, let's wrap it up. I think it's a good show, and we're learning and we're developing and we're getting better, and the plant's going to grow, and whether it's figurative or literal, the plant, it will grow. Maybe that should be our thing. Like tune in every week to see how much
the plant has grown.
Right. We'll do like a time lapse on the plant.
I love it. All right, man. Well, hey, it was great catching up with you. Can't wait to do it again next week. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to us here on a little show. If you do like what you're listening to, make sure you like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell to get those new emails letting you know that we have new content up. We will be putting this show on a variety of different platforms, so be on the lookout for that as well. I think, like we talked about earlier, at some point, hopefully on Apple, maybe Spotify, Facebook, and throughout. So yeah, we'll be getting it out there. And guys, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. We'll see you guys next week.
Yeah, have a great week. Stay gassed up.
Bye-bye.